Hi, my name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Woman of Inspiration Awards, and this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast, where we speak with women who lead, inspire, and motivate. And I have a very special guest on our show today. She is just fresh back from New York City with a title that I am loving, which is Woman of Inspiration Rising Leader. Welcome, Katie Phipps. She is the managing partner of Vera Causa. So, welcome, Katie. It's so lovely to have you on the Woman of Inspiration podcast. And I'm still feeling the adrenaline buzz. How about you?
Totally, I am. It feels like already a long time ago just because it was such an energy burst. And then it's kind of like you come down and you come home and you get back to work. And it was a wonderful time. But thank you for having me here today.
Very cool. So I'm going to just fill the listeners in
Yeah.
a little bit about what you do. You, of course, are the managing partner of Vera Causa, a full-service marketing and communications agency based in Calgary with a North American footprint. In your role, you're responsible for articulating and guiding the company's vision and then building and integrating that business operation systems into something that all your team can achieve together. And Katie, you have more than once you have this big vision. I know you were on our panel in New York City, and I just want to start with, do you remember what you wanted to be when you were 12? Because you are changing. I mean, you're an inspiring leader. You've done a lot, and the grass does not grow under your feet. You go. And so, what were you like as a little girl? What did you want to be? Do you remember?
I do. Okay, I think I always wanted to be the boss of something. And I had that kind of like boss energy, bossy, whatever. Um, but I actually really wanted to be an actress. So I spent a lot of time. I did a ton of theater, like a ton of community theater. I was in theater companies, school stuff. So I loved the drama, the theater. I liked being on stage. I liked playing different roles. I really, really enjoyed that. I tried all sorts of stuff. I tried some really weird stuff throughout my theater journey. And for a long time, I thought that's what I was going to do. But there's this other part of my brain and my DNA that always really, like, I guess I'll say it moved toward wanting to do something in business. And so when I was making decisions, when it was time to go to university, I was, exploring different fine arts programs, but there was something kind of like scratching in the back of my brain. And it was hard because I had spent so much time on this journey that, oh, I was going to be an actress. That's what I was going to do. And I remember having a really important conversation, a critical conversation with my dad about what I was going to do. And he said, I think, you should maybe explore something that taps into some of your other strengths. And he said, if you want to do fine arts, like, I'm all there, I'm all in behind you. But it feels like, what are your true reasons for wanting to do this? Like, do you want to be in People magazine or do you really want to be an actress? And I was like, oh, I started to kind of question what my motivations had become there. So I went into a communications program and at that point, I think I saw like an advertising executive in a movie, and I was like, that seems badass. I like creative stuff. Maybe I'll do that. But I sort of had this shift where it was like, okay, I want to do something in business. I want to be involved in solving problems. Certainly, I have to say that my theater background has served me immensely. I mean, so much of what we do, we're pitching, we're presenting, we're doing business development. Like you are on a stage all the time, having to represent yourself and speak and be confident. And I would recommend to every kid, no matter what you want to do some theater because it will serve you.
I actually love that. It's never a straight line. It's
No.
never linear
Yeah.
for any woman. But I do remember the conversation when I had asked the panel, because the panel was specifically, it's like stepping into the
Yeah.
spotlight.
Yeah.
Because when you are an owner of the business, you're leading a team, you have to be comfortable of being in the spotlight, owning that confidence and that worth. And you right out of the gate go, I love it. And that is, I have to say that a lot of interviews that I've had, people are like, okay, I know I need to do that. Is that the most comfortable spot for me as a leader? No. And a lot of it had to do with ego, coming back to, kind of that ego thing. And I had specifically said, if you don't put yourself in the spotlight,
Yeah.
others can't follow in your footsteps,
Yeah.
and why that's so important. So, why is that so important? And I really love that you're like a baller. You're like, no, I love it. Because
Yeah.
honestly, I love it too. And, it's just
And it kind of gets a
owning
bad
it.
rap, like I had a lot of teachers would have said, oh, she's like an exhibitionist or the class clown or whatever. But I did in ways I was very comfortable with the attention being on me. Now, one thing I will say about that is that, you kind of put on masks and you play parts, whether that is the class clown, whether that's the loud, funny person, whether that is a character, like I'm kind of pretend I'm going to be, a boss or whatever. And it's taken me some time to get really comfortable just being exactly me in new situations. Obviously, a lot of my friends and peers would be like, oh, Katie's pretty outspoken, we know exactly what Katie's about. But getting comfortable just presenting yourself exactly as you are where you are, that's what took longer. I'm feeling it now, but not every day, right? But there is a comfort. Like I do have a comfort, shining the light in my direction. And I hope that I am also shining the light on a lot of other amazing people and young women that I have the opportunity to work with and mentor, because it is important feeling comfortable speaking up and speaking out and being articulate and confident in what you're saying is like critical life skills.
And so, growing up, what was that circle of influence like for you, Katie? Like, were you surrounded by, baller women? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really lucky. So I've had, I don't have any sort of come from the gutter story. I had the best childhood. Like I did, right? I have an incredible family. You met my parents. They were with us in New York and, they're the biggest supporters. Um, my mom is probably the strongest woman I know. I mean, she could do and be anything. She probably lived under her potential just because of the times, but I always thought, my mom was going to be the CEO of something one day if she ever chose that path. And she's been in my ear, telling me and pushing me constantly my whole life. And I always knew that whatever I chose and whatever I did, I had my mom's 100% support. She'd go to bat for me. She would support me in whatever way she needed. So it was always this like super high expectations from both my parents, super high expectations because they knew I held myself to a pretty high standard as well. And I could handle that. And then a ton of support. Like, what do you
Mm.
need to get there? But don't aim low, like aim high. And then what do you need to get there? My dad is an entrepreneur. He's had many businesses, and I tried to model some of my ambition and career after seeing what my dad was able to accomplish. And my dad has done this in a way where I will say, anybody who's ever had a business dealing with my dad, he's the most honest, most integral person you will ever meet in your life. He's never done it. There's no bodies trailing behind him. And I think that is hard to do. So I always wanted to model my approach to business after that. And then, I mean, I have some of my best friends are just the most badass, powerful women. Like I'm like on an energy high sometimes. And I have, this social network of women that is growing, and they're prosecutors, they're business owners, they're therapists, they're like VPs, they're CEOs. I've got a friend who's an actress. She's on Netflix. I've got a friend who works in private equity in went off to New York and worked in private equity. Like I just have surrounded myself with really badass women, and maybe we all lift each other up. Like we all give each other permission to accomplish big things. And I love it. Like it's intoxicating to be around people who are doing cool stuff.
And so let's talk about a little bit about that career path
Mhm.
from, deciding on that career for you, because we
Mhm.
do have some younger listeners, of course.
Yeah.
And I also want to talk about the Lennox Project, which is
Yes.
really important to you as
Yeah.
well. So let's talk about that career path and journey that it took to get you to the level where you're like, and now I'm going to do this on my own.
Yeah. So when I started, when I knew that I wanted to work at an agency, work in advertising, I got pretty dead set on that. And honestly, I like have not looked back. I haven't had that moment where I'm like, oh, I should do something else with my career. Like maybe that's coming down the road. I've still got lots of career years left. But so I was really fortunate. I worked at an amazing agency for a long time. I had worked during university. I did some kind of consulting contracts. I worked part-time for a professional services company as their in-house marketing person. So I was always trying to kind of like hustle and find little opportunities to do stuff and learn. And then I worked at an amazing agency for a long time, and I had some really good mentors there. Oh, like a lot of male mentors, but like huge amounts of support, huge amount of learning, seeing how the business operated, and being brought to the table on the leadership team at a time when I think, my age was probably the biggest knock against me. But I was pretty ambitious, and I always have been willing to get up and put the hard work in. And it just became, I've always wanted to have my own business. It was something I've been, manifesting for a long time. And, I had this kind of vision of, when I started Vera Causa, it was a side hustle. So it was something I was doing outside of the business I was working in. It was, it was known and transparent. I did take on little contracts. I had some clients, and I would do projects, and I it was really intimidating to take the step to say, I'm going to do that full time, and I'm going to leave the quote unquote safety of this other job. But here, like, I don't think there's really safety in staying the same. Like it's a block we put up to stop ourselves from taking a risk that could reflect poorly on us. It's like, well, what if this fails? What will people think of me? And what I would want to say now, that this is seems to be working out pretty well right now, is like, who really cares what people think of you? That's something my husband tells me all the time. He really pushes that. He's like, who cares what people think of you? What do you think? Like, what do you want to do? And taking that leap to kind of go all in on something and really bet on yourself. That happened like full time about 5 years ago.
Mm.
It's vulnerable, and you're out there. And I brought in a business partner, Chris, who I'm sure I'll get a chance to talk about. He's the one who nominated me for the award. And it's it's been a ride, and it's been an up and it's been a down ride. Like there's no, it's not easy. It's not like, oh well, yeah, like we just did that. But it's taking that big leap where you are betting on yourself, and you have yourself to rely on at the end of the day. It's like no one else is going to put dinner on my table. That's going to have to be me. And I like that pressure. I thrive under pressure, but it's different. So that's kind of where we ended up, and the business has been doing really well. And I am having the time of my life. So I'm feeling grateful for the things that have come to me, that you still work hard for them, you deserve them, but it's still a grateful feeling to be doing what I said I was going to do.
So great. I love hearing that because I don't think that we stop and acknowledge how that moment of power. And we talked about women and power, and now
Yeah.
you are a woman in a position of power, able to make decisions to lift others up, to
Yeah.
change the direction, and to really change the path for women in leadership. So congratulations on all of that. I do want to talk about, you had the Lennox Project. This is
Yeah.
something new for you in 2024. So I'd love you to share a little bit about what that is all about, because it's kind of along the same lines of, now that you are in a position of power that you can actually make change, what is that change that you'd like to make?
So, yes, the Lennox Project is very special to me, and I'm working to get this off the ground in a meaningful way. So my daughter's name is Lennox. So I have an 8-year-old daughter. So my family, I have two amazing stepsons. They're 19 and 16. And then I have two more kids. So my daughter Lennox, who is 8, and then my son Jet, who is 7. And something about, as a woman, having a daughter was really kind of foundation shaking for me. I felt a huge, immense responsibility after I had her. I've always wanted to accomplish things, and I always thought like women can do everything and anything and we're amazing. But having a daughter, all of a sudden I felt this weight on my shoulders, like what will her opportunities be like, and what can I do to make sure that every little girl has amazing opportunity ahead of them. And the world, like things have come, I think girls are taking over the world. Like, honestly, I really do, and I'm okay with it. But it's my daughter has so much sass and so much confidence and so much swagger, and that's great. But I know that she's in a position, much like I was in a position, to have super high expectations and a ton of support. And there's a whole bunch of research and data to support the role of extracurricular in young kids' lives. This is boys and girls, in young kids' lives in terms of developing that core self-worth and self-confidence, which I think is the piece that can give you permission to bet on yourself. Like, at some point in your life, you have to bet on yourself, and you have to have a belief deep enough inside you that you're worth it and you deserve it. So the Lennox Project is really an idea about connecting young girls who need access to opportunity, to extracurricular opportunity, with sponsors. And we're working on basically a one-to-one type of agreement. So this is where I'm trying to make this really impactful. Like, I feel, okay, well, what am I going to leave behind? What am I going to do to make people's lives better? I would rather make 5 people's lives better than marginally touch 100 people. So I'm working to set up a grant-based system that is a multi-year commitment. So if we had an application come in for someone who really wanted to pursue, whether that was basketball, whether it was theater, whether it was music lessons, we're going to match them with a sponsor who commits to a minimum term, which is going to be a multi-year program. And we're going to be able to give them those opportunities, as opposed to kind of taking in money and then giving little bits out. I really want to match up donors with these young girls. So we're working through the logistics of, being registered as a not-for-profit, and how the grant applications are going to come in, and the structure and governance of the nonprofit. So what I'm building out right now is my board. So I'm going to have my board of advisors, and then I'm going to have what I'm calling a shadow board, but they're also going to be the mentors for some of the young girls. And this is an opportunity to bring in some girls that are probably maybe from like late high school through university as a shadow board. They're going to be matched up with mentors that are on the board, and they're going to see how things run. They're going to have opportunities to see how all of these women's businesses operate, and they're going to be matched up with the girls in the program, almost in that like big sister type environment. So you kind of have this 3-tier approach, where these young girls are going to have someone that they'll think is, amazing and cool, and is in university, that can be part of their life. They're going to have access and opportunity for extracurricular. And then those girls, those young women, are going to have mentorship from women that are out there doing cool things. Because that mentorship piece at all levels, like having people who believe in you and can set a positive example of what's possible, is critical.
And I have to say that, back in my day, there wasn't this unlimitless potential, or the access to role models and mentors. It just wasn't,
Yeah.
created. And so, even, we're 10 years now with Universal Women's Network. Even at that point, it was still like starting, right?
Yeah.
And so it's powerful, and I love what you're doing, and I see the generational impact that you're able to make through what you're doing, Katie. So congratulations, because I think your mom is probably looking at that going, yeah, that's my legacy.
Yeah.
Like, I see her sort of
Yeah.
being the catalyst for the impact that she made in your life, and now you transferring that through to your daughter and other young women.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you have to find ways to be of service as well,
Mhm.
because when good things have happened in your life, it's like, well, how can I create opportunities for other people? And that's going to be, I'm inspired by my daughter, and I want people to have what she has. And then I'm also inspired by all the young girls that I work with. I mean, they're incredible, and they teach me a lot of stuff, like tactical stuff, like how to use social media, and also like life stuff. So I'm always kind of like, what's going on with you guys? So we're learning from each other, and I'm trying to model, you know, uh, a mentorship type approach that gives them permission to come into their own with support. And also I'm, trying to stay relevant by hanging out with them.
Well, I have to tell you, we used to have so one of our categories was youth excellence.
Yeah.
And the applications that came in, we had an 8-year-old probably in 2007 that kind of sparked the need for why are we only having 16 and above?
Yeah.
So we had an 8-year-old apply for it. She had a cookie business at 5,
Amazing.
and she actually won. She won in a category
Yeah.
with women that were competing for the
Yeah.
same category. And
Yeah.
anyways, we created a youth excellence category because we didn't have a category for youth.
Yeah.
And it's really inspiring to see these dynamic young women that are just so driven and so passionate. It's awe-inspiring, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. So yes, love what you're
Yeah.
doing. I think that's
Yeah.
a great project.
Yeah, so stay tuned. We're just working through getting like the logistics of how this is going to operate, because of course I'm an idea person.
Yeah.
So like, this is what I want to do, and like throw it out into the universe. What I try to do is surround myself with people who can help me turn those ideas into reality, like a functioning nonprofit, and go through and I mean, I will say that's a different process. Like you can incorporate a
Mhm.
business overnight in Alberta, but a nonprofit, there's some hoops to jump through, as there should be. And then setting up getting our pitches ready so that we can get sponsors, and how are we going to get grants, and what is the approach to that. So, working through all of that, but stay tuned. I'm really excited about it. And again, like I hope we can, even like a meaningful impact that you can see, I think is really important too for the sponsors that we want to get involved as well.
Awesome. Well, I also want to talk about the other support
Yeah.
that you have in your world, and we call them support hers.
Yeah.
And I did see your husband out in full force, and so why is it so important, Katie, that I mean, I still feel that we're scratching the surface by inviting men to the conversation as our allies and our champions and our
Yeah.
support hers. But why is it so important? And how have you seen the value of having men at the table in your personal situation?
So I feel like I have kind of the Holy Trinity. I'll call them the Holy Trinity. There's my dad, my husband, and my business partner, Chris. So and I feel very lucky because these are three men that are incredibly supportive of myself and help push me and make sure I believe in myself and give me that support. But they're also just people who have there's no they're not threatened by women in positions of power. Like they're just people who are strong in themselves and look for equal opportunity in everything. And so at different times in my life those people have played different roles, but like today, I am fortunate my dad and I do some business together still, and I think that's fun. We're like, I can kind of still learn from him, and he's got a lot of years of experience in business, right? Like, okay, so you're doing a contract negotiation. Well, he's one of the first people I call because he's seen every type of contract that you can imagine. Oh, you're selling a business, you're acquiring a business. Like, what does this look like? He can give me a ton of actual support in that. And then also I grew up learning to cook from my dad and drinking great wine. So we have, I have a really strong relationship with my dad, which is wonderful. My husband is, I mean, he's been amazing. So I'm really lucky. He is like the pusher. I don't falter too often in my confidence, but everybody does every now and then. And like I said earlier, he's big on like care less about what anybody thinks of you, like you do you. Of a funny example is I never actually changed when we got married. I never changed my last name. I pretended to change my last name and I like went by his last name for a little while. Because I kind of thought that's what you're supposed to do. Not because he asked me, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna do that. And then if we have kids, we'll all have the same last name. But I never went through, there was like this weird hitch. I never went through and changed my name. it was a lot of paperwork as well. And I was like, oh my God. But I was always really attached to Phipps. Like that was my identity for the first 29 years of my life. And I was attached to it. And I said something one day and he's like, well, just go buy Phipps. And I was like, yeah, but like now I've been going like parading around as Sam Molesky and this is weird and whatever. And he's like, stop, like just do what makes you feel happy. Like, who cares if I was like, what do people think? People think we split up. And he's like, so we didn't. It doesn't matter, right? So he's always like, he's giving me that like little boost of like, you do you. And he is the best dad, the best husband. I've been so busy at work. He has picked up a ton of the slack at home. And so we have a really balanced 21st century relationship, right? He is not trying to, escape responsibility or duties. I sent him a note the other day and I was away. There was a snowstorm in Calgary and I said, remember, to take out the snowsuits. And he's kind of like, already got it, all good, carry on, right? Like, I have a really capable partner. And then I have a very great business partner, Chris. So he's a very seasoned, experienced PR professional and has had a very, very long and interesting career. He's been a huge champion of mine. I mean, he came in, he joined this business that I started. He is like hits the pavement running every day. He makes me laugh. Like he makes coming to work awesome and amazing. And like he nominated me for this award. Like he's a big supporter. And I mean, he's in a business that is we have a lot of like women in our business at our agency and then in a lot of the clients that we work with. And he's like like supporting everybody. He's got an amazing daughter as well, who's like the most proud of. So I just think it's just in him. He's not intimidated by powerful women. In fact, he's just impressed and tries to boost them. So I kind of have like that holy trinity of people that are in my daily life.
I turned my mic off for just a minute. But this is what I love to hear. Like, I love to hear the impact that our male champions are making in
Yeah.
our lives because it's not us against them.
Yeah.
And I think for way too long, the media has been playing each other against each other, right?
Mhm.
And I think that we actually do work better together. And if we're going to achieve equality, it's going to take half the population to help move that
Yeah.
in that area. And that we as women value the diversity of perspective. And I think that by including those male champions to the conversation, we have that opportunity, right? And that knowledge and that wisdom. Because, the 97% of, Fortune companies that are led by men, how did they get there? Right? Those are the ones in the positions of power that can actually help
Yeah.
sponsor, encourage, open doors, and glean
Yeah.
that information. So I love that. And so thank you for sharing. You're a very lucky woman to have a holy trinity. I know that,
They're going to
as
hear
a
this and all be like, yeah, we're the spirits.
yeah, like share it with them.
Yeah.
Go, you're one of my
Yeah.
holy trinity. Like you're
Yeah.
there forever now. And I have to say that I have a very, very supportive network of male champions as well. Like I am so dialed into having a support network of male champions. I
Mhm.
mean, I wanted to, I started supporting her because my son, I'm not a girl
Yeah.
mom. I mean, thank goodness I have a whole network of women, which is awesome. But it was so important for me that he has role
Yeah.
models that were men.
Yeah.
And so I love the fact that you
And I
have
think
such
too,
great
like your
support.
son is going to grow up seeing a powerful woman modeled in front of him and like what you're capable of and your ambitions and how you're willing to work hard for what you want. And so he's going to come into his own in the working world just assuming that women are badass, right? And it's like that's how the change happens too.
Yeah. Leading by example all the way for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So next question.
Mm-hmm. Getting an update.
Okay, that was a quick little break. Thank you so much, Katie, as I let my dog out who's 14 because I thought her barking was going to interfere. So we're just going to pick right back up. We just finished talking about support hers and the importance of our male champions in our world. Let's talk about the role of other female leaders and how important it is. You talked a little bit in the very beginning of our interview about surrounding yourself. You have such badass women around you. Um, I hate to say it, but that's not always the case. What has been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly sought out those types of relationships. So from a mentorship perspective, I mean, you try and kind of connect yourself and get onto the radar of powerful women leaders, and being afforded the opportunities, whether that's through work or other opportunities to attend like women in leadership conferences and make connections with people, and then you stay in touch with them. I've recently joined the WPO chapter here in Calgary, which is the Women Presidents Organization. And there are 17 women in that group. And I mean, all doing something very cool on their journey. There's business owners, there's executives, there's like from all different types of organizations. And so just being very purposeful in finding those relationships and finding those people that you can learn from. Because in my day-to-day life at Vera Causa, I'm the leader of this business. I need to be mentoring the next generation, the other women in the business, but then I need to find those opportunities for myself. And there's something about women coming together. I mean, there's a power in it. There's an energy. We share a lot of personal stories, a lot of work stories. You can be brutally honest about things with people like that. And it's just critical. Like it's critical for me to surround myself with people that I can learn from. And when I see people who are successful, I immediately want to know them, and I want to know what was it about them? Like, what did they do? What was their story? How did they do this? How did they navigate that? Did they ever feel like this? Did they ever have a time where they were like, I don't know how I'm going to do, pay the bills, or I'm not going to do this? And you start to see that everybody has a unique and interesting journey. You can see yourself in parts of it, which is affirming that you're on the right path. And just, being able to share and learn is critical. But you have to seek those opportunities out. And for the most part, people, I have found women that have walked these steps before me more than willing to take time to spend with you, to learn about you, to care about what you're doing. Like, I think there is a help each other up attitude that happens.
Beautiful. And what is some of the best advice that you've ever received?
Say here. I mean, I think I'll go back to that idea of betting on yourself. And I don't even know who said this to me, but it kind of always has stuck in my head. Like, just like, bet on yourself, because you can control that. You can control what you do and you don't do. You can't control people around you. You can only control your contribution, how hard you're willing to work, what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing to risk. And it's powerful because it doesn't always go well. It doesn't always work, but at least you're self-actualizing as opposed to kind of hoping that things will happen around you. It's a position of power, I think, to bet on yourself.
So one question is, I
Yeah.
mean, the road is never smooth.
No.
And when you come to a bump in the road, like how do you overcome the challenges? Because I think it's really important that we all have that authenticity to share. It doesn't always go smooth, but
Yeah.
how do you deal with the challenges in order to get past those bumps in the road?
So this is interesting because the thing I keep saying to my daughter is we talk about the word perseverance all the time. I think it's the key to a lot of things in life, whether you're struggling with something at school, whether you're struggling with something in your sport, whether you're struggling, like whatever that looks like. So I always say like Lennox, perseverance, perseverance. And she goes, I know, when it gets hard, keep going. I've like drilled this into her head. When it gets hard, keep going. And it's that simple idea of I have to continue to put one foot in front of the other. I have to move forward because things will go a certain way. I can control a certain amount of that. Things will go a certain way. But if I stop moving, if I stop persevering, then I become a victim immediately. And that's a place that I don't want to be. That's a place I don't want my kids to be. That's a place where I don't want people that I care about to be. Is like, you control your destiny as best you can, and you have to have a lot of perseverance. So it's not easy to do. It's easier to say, but you know, you have to practice it, and you have to force sometimes. It's like, can't throw your hands up in the air. Maybe you get to do that for a minute and like, and then you have to come up with a plan. Okay, what is my next move? What is my next move? How do I go into problem solving mode right away? What do I need? What do I need support from different people? Do I need resources from different people? Do I just need to call that one friend that you can just unleash and vent with, and then they give you the like pat on the butt and off you go again, right? Like, you just have to know how to keep putting one foot in front of the other, because the sun will rise the next day. Like, it will continue to do that, and you get to decide how you show up. So I really like that idea of like, when it gets hard, keep going.
Lovely. That is a terrific advice, and I am a subscriber to that all day long. Especially the sun will always, one thing that is for certain
Yeah.
is the sun will always rise the next day. And so you get to turn the page, and tomorrow's a completely different day. And mindset is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Like, our minds are
Your mind can tank you. It can take
oh,
you down some really dark paths too, where you can start to spiral. Like, one bad thing happens, and then the second thing happens that you weren't expecting, and it's like, uh-oh, and you start to spiral. And so, you know, like driving, pump up music. That's some part, like just kind of shifting the energy from like downing energy to upping energy, right? Like little things like that.
oh, I have a playlist, let me tell you. And that actually, that is why I have always asked, what is your
Yeah,
power song
yeah,
on the applications for the awards?
yeah,
And
yeah,
we've created a playlist of
yeah,
all of the songs of all of
yeah,
the years of all of the power songs of all the women. And
yeah.
they're diverse for
Oh yeah,
sure. But I mean, we've got the best playlist that
yeah,
brings everybody out. So,
yeah,
anyways, um, thank you so much for sharing. Now we're ending our podcast here,
yeah,
and I just have a couple more questions. I
yeah.
always am curious about self-care routines.
Yeah.
Like, what are some of your non-negotiables that you're like, make me the best leader that I can be?
So
The best
I,
leader, the best mom, the best
yeah.
person. Like, what are some things that are really your non-negotiables, Katie?
So I have a horse. I started riding. So this started during COVID. I got into this with my daughter actually. So I have a horse. We do like show jumping, like jumping over things on these big, powerful beasts. And it is incredibly time consuming and a big part of my life. But it is the like most grounding thing I have done for myself mentally. I have a really active mind. Like, I have trouble shutting off my mind, and I've never been very successful at any sort of meditation practice. Like, it's almost too,
Quiet.
there's not enough going on. Like, I'm a kind of a high stimulation person. So I find my flow state on my horse. So I always say when I go, sometimes I'm rushing and I gotta get to the barn. I'm coming from work and I'm picking up my daughter, and like snacks in the back of the car, and here's your change of clothes, and you're just kind of like flying from one thing to the next. And I'm like scrolling my to-do list in my head while I'm and it's like, it can be like a little bit high anxiety to-do list. Like, okay, get on my horse. I have to be so in the zone and so concentrated that my head just dumps that out.
Mhm.
Because I have to, because I'm on a 1,500-pound animal jumping over things. Like, you've got to be all there. And it is like, I mean, for people who are into horses, like, it's a really beautiful thing too, right? To be able to partner with an animal like this. So then I get off my horse, and those things are there. They come back. I remember them. And it's just so much more grounded. Like, a lot of that energy goes away. And I mean, they use horses for therapy. So, I mean, it makes sense. Like, my horse, he's he's pretty important in my life, and sometimes just seeing him and touching him and his big brown eyes, his name is Jerry, he's changed my life. And riding has changed my life because it has forced balance. I have to go to the barn, and I will not be able to access my phone for at least an hour. So I got used to not having my phone in my face all the time and being like, oh, I got an email, I got this, I got,
Mm.
because I had to. And then it was like, well, this is priority. So I forced that, and it was okay with it, and the world didn't burn down. So wait a second. I can have boundaries. I can do things that serve me. I can do things that fill my own cup. So my horse is really my big self-care. And then we like to travel, trips. And that's something we do as a family. Sometimes it's just me and my husband. But it is, it's kind of like the fruits of your labor, like go somewhere, eat wonderful food, whether it's a beach, whether it's New York City, like do things and see things, that, remind you like why you got to get up and grind every day too.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love the horse therapy,
Yeah.
and you're right. You can't be out there with your phone in your hand. You have to be completely present.
Yeah.
And I've got that brain as well, Katie.
Yeah.
Like it never shuts down
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
So finding outlets, for me, it's nature, when I
Yeah.
can just like leave the city
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
That's me. So anyways, love, love, love. And so as we wrap up our Woman of Inspiration podcast, by the way, it has
Yeah.
been an absolute pleasure
Yeah.
to get behind the scenes with you.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just like such a big fan, of course.
Oh, thank you.
Women of Inspiration brings together the most incredible female leaders from all walks of life doing incredible things, and you are one of them for sure. But what is your definition of a woman of inspiration, Katie?
So the way I define this and try and articulate it is it's that like to me, someone I'm really inspired by, I always feel like they made something difficult look doable.
Mm,
It's like they were bold enough or risky enough to try something or take over something or start something. And although to, the outside eyes, it probably looks like they're just suave and confident and got all that swagger. It's like they had to do some stuff to get there. They had to put in the work. They probably had to jump a lot of hurdles. They probably had to have a lot of people say no to them, that they wanted to prove wrong. And so it's kind of this bold and brave uh piece of like, you know the everything's attainable if you put together the plan and the network to do it, but you've got to be, a little risky, a little ambitious. And I love that. Like I like people sometimes say, oh, ambitious is a bad word. I'm like, no, ambitious is an amazing word. Like it's I love people with ambition. I'm ambitious. I think it's that like they're bold and brave and they took some big risks to get where they are.
very cool. Well, I love the word ambition as well. I think that the world is better for it, for the
Yeah.
change makers in the world like yourself. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on the Woman of
Yeah.
Inspiration podcast. Is there any final words that you'd love to leave our audience with today?
No, I mean, I just want to say thank you. I mean, for what you're doing, Monica. I think it's amazing. I had an amazing time in New York at the awards. I mean, it was very, very inspiring, and just hearing all the different women and from such diverse backgrounds, from such diverse industries, jobs, careers, life paths. So I think it's amazing. So thank you, because this is really important too. Representation really matters. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And that is really important to be putting women to the spotlight, just like we did today. So, so much knowledge and insight. Thank you so much for sharing. And to the listeners, I'm going to say, please share this widely with anybody that you feel might benefit. And actually, that's everybody, to be honest. And I look forward to having you back on the Women of Inspiration podcast and the journey ahead. Thanks very much,
Thank
Katie.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.